All right, well, hello everybody. Nice to be here today at your Hacker House. I'm Christine Perry, Solutions Engineering Lead from Avail. Has anyone heard of Avail or DA accessibility layers in general? Sounds like it? Okay. Yeah, there's Avail, there's EigenLayer, there's Celestia, there's three. One of the things that has been made possible through DA is the ability to use that technology to build on top of it to find a way to get rid of bridges. Now, when I say that, I know it's controversial. We're not trying to get rid of bridges in general for the developer, but for the end user. Because I think we can all agree that we've all had some pretty bad experiences from an end user standpoint using a bridge. How many people in the room have had to unknowingly trust a bridge they weren't sure was safe? How many people in the room had to bridge through multiple different chains because now there's so many different rollups and map chains? I see your hand just staying up, which I love because sounds like all of these are resonating. And then what happens is you lose track of assets. You move things over, and then somehow as an end user, you give up because you're just done. It's just not worth your time. You move on to the next best shiny thing. And this is creating like a bridging nightmare. Like it's a UX horror story that we're not admitting to ourselves in Web3. Like if we want to move beyond just being a niche industry, we have to figure out a way to fix the UX. And one great way to do that is to not put onto the end user the need to have to deal with bridges across so many different chains, because they will just give up. And from a developer standpoint, it's fragmented dreams. We just want to deploy our app, we want to get users outside of Web3, and we can't. Now, again, this is what I was mentioning before, it's a bottleneck. And in order to fix the bottleneck, one of the things that we're setting out at Avail to do is build beyond just a DA layer. So data accessibility is great. You have one source of truth for all the chains that are sending their proofs directly to the DA layer, which is great, which creates like an amazing bucket of proofs across multiple chains that you can take advantage of. And that's where we saw the ability to create Nexus. So while we do these three different layers of Avail, I'm going to focus on Nexus here, because this is the part where it's creating a single hub for a unified experience through proof aggregation. Now, if you're able to aggregate proofs inside of a single hub, it means that as a developer, you can take advantage of this and not expect your user to hop from chain to chain to chain from some arbitrary bridge that they've recently found or research what bridge they have to use. Instead, they can just interact with the app and know that, okay, the transaction has been verified already via Nexus. Now, high level, this is what it looks like. And I'm going to walk you through a few different scenarios from the developer standpoint and the user standpoint. This is going to be from the developer standpoint, because from a developer standpoint, you care about the chains that are out there. You care about where they're sending their proofs. But what's interesting here is that this data availability layer down here, Avail is already doing that. We're already capturing from all these different rollups all of the transactions that have happened. We're making sure that they're in the right sequence. We're then sending it back to the L1s. That's already happened. But what happens if we take the rollups, instead of having them direct their proofs directly to data availability, they're able to do it through another layer called Nexus, which does the proof aggregation and the sequencing. What that means is that the invisible plumbing is now created for the end user. We're not putting on the users to have to figure out how to bounce from chain to chain to chain. We're putting on the developers, which, yes, I admit, that does make your job a little bit harder. But I think in the long run, what we're really trying to achieve here is a better user experience. In order to do that, we're working in an industry that's hard. So we are going to have to take on the harder problems, which is figuring out how to create a better user experience. And this is one of the ways that Avail is trying to make that possible. Deploy once to Nexus, take advantage of all the other chain assets that exist out there, which means that you no longer have to deal with this fragmented liquidity situation. You can interact, you can have a user interact with one chain, check the proof within Nexus, and automatically have the second chain do something such as sending out an NFT. I'll get more into that example later. But this is from the viewpoint of the developer. So to simplify it even further, because I know that's a lot, let's look at this simple graph. You have chain A, you have chain B. If we were to take Nexus, and what it's basically doing, even though it does so many things, is that proof verification. From chain A, you're writing a state update. because it's connected to Avail DA, is able to do the proof verification, and then chain B only has to read from it. You don't have to have chain A figure out how chain B operates and then somehow create a bridge to do that. You're suddenly able to have all these chains integrate within one system, which is Nexus that already has Avail DA attached. So from a developer standpoint, again, we're kind of expanding it to like a 5-step process, but you can see that this is like passing notes. When you think about this, like bridges are passing notes, but it's making the user have to pass these notes. We're saying let's have the developer pass notes. They connect all the chains to Avail Nexus. You perform a transaction on any chain. You wait for Nexus to update, and once Nexus is updated, it means that you're able to fetch the proof from any chain within Nexus and automatically send out whatever asset you need to send to that user. So again, that's from the developer standpoint. The developer wins. They have unified liquidity. They have unified proofs within one system. They build once, they scale everywhere. Great. But from a user, what does this mean? It means that the bridges are hidden. It means that instead of them having to change their MetaMask to interact with ZK Sync 1 and ZK Sync 2, they can simply just interact with the app that's deployed on ZK Sync 1. But the assets that are being given to them can be from any chain. And the app is able to obfuscate the fact that you're bouncing between all these different chains through the aggregated proof within Nexus. And this is going to be a slight shift in how the ecosystem has been going, which is build more bridges because there's 100 new chains every day. Instead, you can have a way to where all the proof aggregation is in one single spot. I won't go, I kept this short as well, mainly because, we're talking about bridges and getting rid of them. It's pretty simple, but the idea, I think, like around like Nexus and updating states is what I wanted to approach here. But if you wanted to learn more about how to start building, this is a QR code directly to the documentation where you can get access to the current implementation of it, which provides some great examples for NFT. Running something as complex as Uniswap on one chain, but being able to pull from assets on many other chains. Right now, what it does is it links into ZK Sync chains, but we're currently on our new track where we're bringing in Optimism chains as well. So you're able to cross between ZK and Optimism. You're also going to be able to cross over between those two and Starkware as well. So we're slowly adding in different chain architectures to really prove out the concept of not just bridging between one ecosystem, but multiple. And so thank you for having me here today. All right. And of course, if you want to follow us on Twitter, please do. But yeah, any questions? Yeah.
Do you need to use the DA to make Avail work, or sorry, to make the Nexus work?
So Nexus uses the DA, and the developer, they do not have to connect directly to the DA. It's all being done through Nexus and adapters. So kind of think of it as like your developer toolkit. Right now we have CLIs, but we're building SDKs to make it easier to integrate within your Next.js applications, your Java applications, whatever application you have that you're building on top of the blockchain. You're able to just use the adapter within Nexus, and from there you automatically have a connection to the DA. Now, right now, rollups are currently sending their proofs directly to the DA, so it's not that you can't access it. If you want to, you can. One way of granting you access to that, let me show you this because this is a more complex view of what's really going on here. A lot of the times, what we're trying to get from the DA is proof the transaction actually happened on multiple different chains. And so the way that Avail does it is there are these light clients, which is a way to do data sampling. So you don't have to pull the entire blockchain. You don't have to run a full node. You can simply sample. It's like having different pieces of a puzzle. But you know that it's accurate because you verified those different pieces, and you're able to reach out to different light chains to say, hey, do you have the other pieces? Okay, great. We know that this is accurate. And so that is a way where if you do need access to the full data availability, you can. And what's really cool with Avail that is very custom to them is the light clients are able to be modified to where you can change it to where you can only look for transactions from your application or another application. And so you can do the segmentation in that way and get all the proofs.
Got it. So you don't need to be posting data necessarily to use Nexus for interop?
As a developer, no. As a chain, yes. So the rollups will still be posting directly, so they're directly integrated. From a developer, your main use case is for it is simply being able to prove that it exists and accessing it. Yeah. Yeah. But great question. So, yeah.
Which is the average time to verify the proof and with the average cost?
The average time to verify the proof?
Yes, just to send to prove in the other chain.
Yeah, so within Avail, right now, you're able to, there are different layers of confirmation. So there's a soft confirmation, which we're able to give you pretty much like right away. After the soft confirmation, there is another confirmation that happens within a minute. But then as we are, there's another layer to where we were posting to the other like layer ones that originated from, in which case that can take up to 2 hours. But that verification of the long-term verification is not what developers are relying on. It's that minute where you're able to verify that it actually exists within the DA. So, yeah.
What do you think is the main difference with another bridges like Axelar, for example, that it's a
Mhm.
bridge chain kind of? Um,
Yeah. So I think what we're what I'm not saying is that bridges are completely going away because as a developer, I'm still going to need to get my assets over some way. But from an end user standpoint, I have to know that I can trust this bridge. And so that's kind of hard to do when there's so many different ones like out there that exist, and you have the hacks. Was it wormhole? You have all sorts of hacks that happen, and so from an end user standpoint, I think the main thing that we're removing is the trust that they have to give to there. Because if they're coming to your application, they want to stay on your application. They don't want to be sent off to some third party to deal with the bridge. They want to stay with your application. So if you're able to build a bridge that's based off of internal plumbing, it means that it still feels like they're in the same ecosystem. And so from a Web 2 standpoint, if I'm coming over from Web 2 to Web 3, that's what I'm used to. I'm not used to having to bring from Coinbase, go to this chain, go to that chain, go to that chain. That might be off-putting. But if you're able to come to one chain and make it so that way they can access all these chains directly within your application, that's a different way of thinking about like exposing Web3 to the end user. And so I'd say the underlying architecture is sort of bridge-like, but what we are trying to do is obfuscate what the end user has to deal with when it comes to dealing with a bridge. So, yeah. And so, yeah, there will be a lot of different tools within the Nexus tool house. Think of it, again, just like as a toolkit. But I think what we're launching with is let's figure out how to make the liquidity less fragmented. And so one of the first use cases that we're going to be like launching is around, okay, let's figure out how we can do this from a DEX, where a user can simply just deal with one chain and be able to grab assets from any other chain directly within that DEX. All brought to you by the underlying layer of Avail DA, which is we have the proofs. So.
How fast is that to grab like the assets from like a different chain?
So that's going to still be dependent on the chain itself. Some are faster than others. I think like within the ZK system that we're currently integrating with, it's a very short like time frame. Like because for the DA layer, like within a minute, you're able to have the specific proof. It means that you are able to move really fast and waiting for the transactions. So when I build on top of Nexus right now, if you come to my talk tomorrow at ETHDenver, the main one of the main stages there, I'm doing a music sequencer. That is, I'll talk to you about how to use that to like share music across chains, where if you have users creating music across different chains, they can share with different users. And so it happens pretty fast. It's not something where you're waiting an hour, because you will lose a user for sure. Yeah.
And is Avail itself an L1?
Avail itself right now is not an L1. Right now, we are focusing on the data availability and the execution layer, which is Nexus. We are going to be having Fusion soon, which will be around like restaking. It allows you to bring in multiple tokens to create that extra security as you're like adding on these different like rollups. But right now, no, it's not an L1.
What secures the data?
So what secures the data and Avail?
Avail, yeah.
So the Avail token, there is a token within there. So it is based off of stakes. So we do have a validator network as well, and they all have to reach a certain threshold of having a certain amount of Avail staked. There is a program for node validators that want to join that network. But just like all other blockchains out there, there's different level of validation that you can do within the system. All right. Thanks, guys.